Like steampunk, black speculative fiction, and comics, we've got the show for you. Tonight, we introduce you to Aiesha Little, a local writer and editor based in Cincinnati, to talk about her work and this year's upcoming Queen City Black Comix Day. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cincinnati Cabinet of Curiosities presents the Hometown Haunts podcast. And with me tonight, our first guest for this show this evening is Aiesha D. Little, who is a writer and editor based here in wonderful, sunny Cincinnati, and the co-founder of the Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance. The organization started in late 2014 and added the Queen City Black Comix Day to its events roster in summer of 2015. The day is meant to spotlight the contributions of Black indie comic creators throughout the Midwest, but especially Ohio. Aiesha has also been a model character for our friend Jay's comic Mest and has been ghost hunting, which is what I'm also very interested to hear about. Her adventure ghost hunting in the wilds of Hamilton, Ohio. So welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I am interested in everything you do. So
where do you want to start?
I am really interested in the Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance. Now, we had Cassandra Jones on earlier, who's also a writer in the group, and she had nothing but good things to say. So I am interested in your involvement with the group. Did you help start it?
I did. So in 2014, I was reading an article about Rashida Phillips in Philadelphia, and she runs the Afrofuturist Affair. It's like this big ball that's kind of like focused on Afrofuturism. And I was like, it would be so cool to like have something like that here in Cincinnati. So I reached out to some like-minded geeky people and asked them what they thought. And we all kind of got together and thought about a name and just went from there. We came up with the Midwest Black Speculative Fiction Alliance, which is a mouthful.
It is.
It encompasses kind of everything that we wanted to focus on. So we didn't want to just focus on sci-fi. I'm heavily into steampunk, and we didn't want it to just be like focused on steampunk. So kind of spec fic is an umbrella that covers all of the genres that we wanted to get into.
Yeah, I know Christina and I heavily identify with that because we got Cabinet of Curiosities because we're like, we got to cover everything. We can't just be ghost stories. We can't just be urban legends. We got to do everything. So speculative fiction, what is your favorite segment? Because that's a broad writing genre.
Oh, gosh.
I know you just said steampunk.
For me, I would probably say steampunk because before Midwest BSFA, I was already kind of into steampunk, the local steampunk scene for a couple of years. And I always kind of wanted to get outside of the like either American Wild West or like Victorian England, because I'm like, I'm Black. Where am I fitting in those particular genres? I know that there were, of course, Black cowboys, and I just didn't want to deal with the like kind of colonialism and expansion.
There's a lot of baggage when you talk about either one of those topics.
There's a lot.
Do you want to touch those?
So my thought was like, well, how do I incorporate kind of like African history, like a real African history, to pull in some of that narrative? Because steampunk is essentially the Victorian science fiction, but the Victorian period happened everywhere. So what does steampunk look like in countries that are predominantly Black? What does it look like in countries that are, predominantly Asian? Like what would it look like in those types of settings, and what kinds of stories could you come up with in those types of settings? So for me, probably costume wise, event wise, steampunk is like my go-to locally. And then I think that Afrofuturism is like just a really kind of interesting, mind expanding genre to focus on. Octavia Butler is like was the best thing ever. I just love all of her works, and kind of fell in love with her when I was in grad school. And yeah, it just kind of blew my mind to the possibilities of the types of writing that's out there.
Oh yeah, I think Butler needs to be put into curriculums more, especially in like high school and maybe even middle school. Like, I'm honestly a fantasy writer, but my husband is a huge sci-fi lover, to the point that our son's nickname is sci-fi. So but I was like, when Cassandra was on and I was learning about all these writers, I mean, Douglas Adams was somebody I only ran into when I was in college. I am going to get so much hate comments for that. But Douglas Adams and Terry Pratchett, which, yes, they're two white British dudes. But I didn't learn about them until college. But I think all of these sci-fi writers and speculative fiction writers should be added to the curriculum, especially Butler and all of her peer writers earlier in just academia, so we get a broader, better spectrum of writers and where they're coming from. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, that was a soapbox. But
yeah, I didn't discover her until graduate school. It wasn't even undergrad. It was a graduate level class that I was taking, where we read Parable of the Sower, and I was just like, what is this, and how do I get more of this? Because she is writing about, she's extrapolating from where we are into the future of, if we keep going down the path that we're going, what things will look like. Also, she has a character who, like, I could see myself being that character when I was that character's age.
Right.
So it was very much like something that I could relate to. So I just like dove head first into a lot of her work. But Parable of the Sower, that's just my absolute favorite. It was supposed to be a trilogy, and she was like researching it and writing and doing like preliminary research, from what I understand, when she passed away. So,
oh wow,
you know, you never get that full trilogy, but Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents, amazing work.
Yeah, and so many people can come up behind her kind of and take that mantle and go.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to see in media a lot more of that Afro speculative fiction influencing like things like Black Mirror. Definitely a little thing we all know as Black Panther the movie, like that little thing. And when you mentioned the steampunk Victorian, I think the saying used to be, the sun never set on the British Empire during the Victorian time.
Yeah.
And Killmonger says that in Black Panther, but he takes this wonderful different angle with it. So that's why I was like, hey, yeah, that works. That worked really well.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah.
But there's a steampunk symposium that's here in Cincinnati, isn't there?
Yes. So the symposium typically happens in spring, so March, April timeframe. That's actually, let me see. I got into steampunk in 2012, kind of. I was writing a story for an outlet about kind of cosplay, and I used steampunk to talk about the difference between, you know, the different kinds of dressing up you can do. So you've got your cosplay where you're dressing up like already established characters. You got things like steampunk where you're kind of creating your own characters. And I went to a salon when they used to have the monthly salons at Arnold's downtown. And, you know, I saw the costumes and what have you, and especially the corsets. And I was like, oh, I can do this. This can be my thing. So it took me a little while, but like that was the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. I started going to salons dressed up, and in 2013 I went to my first symposium. And that's just like 3 days of just having fun, dressed up, talking about various topics. I met Diana Foe, who is based in New York and is a huge proponent of steampunk and multiculturalism in steampunk. So she kind of sparked a lot of ideas for me as far as what can steampunk look like what would steampunk look like in an African country?
Yeah. And just anywhere around the world.
Anywhere.
Just, yeah. Because so much of it gets missed. It's not all European. That's old. Let's do something new.
When I first got into steampunk, I asked in a Facebook group, like, this doesn't have anything to do with slavery, right? And you could feel the digital pearl clutching, like, no, oh my God, why would you say that? It's like you're setting your hobby in a time period that is like atrocious for like 99.5% of people. I feel like I have the right to ask this question.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a legit question to ask. You're just like, what are we representing here? Like, where are we going?
Or what I'm getting myself into before I actually fully go out and establish a whole wardrobe. I want to know what exactly this thing is about.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, that leads us to the Queen City Black Comix Day, which I was turned on to by Aziza, who is one of the writers for the Cabinet of Curiosities this round. And I'm very curious about this and how we can kind of amplify to let other people know about this wonderful event.
So Queen City Black Comix Day was a part of our first year of programming through Midwest BSFA. We were just trying to, everyone in the group has full-time jobs. So we were just trying to figure out how many times a year can we do like some event that would be interesting to, the larger kind of Black geek community. And of course, comics came up because, a lot of people enjoy comics, but do they know what kind of indie comics are happening? So we tried to pull together several comic book creators, local, there was actually one person from Cleveland, there was someone from Michigan, just to have them do kind of like a mini vendor hall almost. So you get 7 or 8 people. We had a cosplayer there, and it was mainly to be able to show like the kids and their parents who attend, like this is a viable career option.
Yeah.
I think when I was interviewed for City Beat about the initial day that we had, I said, you can't be what you can't see. So to have a, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kid who's coming in and they see someone who looks like them who is creating comic books, whatever the topic may be, that's just adding to the mix of them thinking about what the possibility of their futures.
Yeah, it's adding to the representation that is dearly needed in the comic book community. Like, obviously, I can't relate because I am a ghost, but I do relate because I get a lot of young girls who are interested in writing, and I'm wondering if Christina's had this too, and she's done book fairs. Finding someone, and I don't know if you know what I do, I'm a writer and a comic book creator, and I run my own little studio. And I run into so many aspiring artists and writers who are female who see no representation at all at these comic events. No shade towards any of like Cincinnati Comic Expo, Rhode Island Comic Fair, whatever, but there just isn't. But in the indie community, we got a large and diverse group working on stuff.
Definitely.
And it's wonderful.
Yeah. You anywhere you look, you can find that representation. It's just, can you get them to those bigger events? Like there are barriers that keep them from attending those events. If you've got to pay for a table, how much is that table going to cost you?
Exactly.
You know, it's just like all of these things that if you are indie, it's being able to kind of like have a smaller event where everyone there is doing what you're doing and they look like you. It's just a nice bonus to have. You're not necessarily having to deal with people passing you by because you're there, you know, just like, why are you here? What are you, or I don't know. It's, to me, I try to support everyone who's doing something, because it takes so much effort and it takes so much time, and just like the sheer, I don't know, I'm gonna sound like an old person if I say gumption to like pull that off, to be able to pull that off. And a part of Midwest BSFA, like our existence, is to get more people interested in Black creators, especially like indie creators, because they can have Kickstarter campaigns and other crowdfunding campaigns going on that, you know, you may not hear about because they don't have the same type of audience that someone else who is more mainstream would have.
Yeah. And in Cincinnati, you have to dig so hard anyway to find our arts, like the other artistic people. I know when I moved here, oh goodness, now it would be like 10 years ago, but there was no comics group of any sort. It was everyone was just out in their own homes, because, you know, we'd never leave our houses anyway, like pandemic or no, we just never leave. And it was just, there was no group. I'm not sure, Christina can probably tell me when the Illustrators group started meeting, but it's taken a lot of organization just from the grassroots effort to get any of these groups up and going.
Yeah.
And now we really should be just helping each other try to grow and say, there's a comics community here. If you're Black, there's a comics community here of like-minded people that you can talk to and bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, I think specifically with like geeky things, people feel like, well, I'm the only one who's doing this thing. Oh, I'm so alone in what I'm doing. And it's like, but you're not. There are plenty of people who are doing what you're doing. It's just, are you all in the same circles to like run across one another? And that's kind of where the breakdown, I think, happens. There are a lot of silos where people are just operating with their small little clique of people, and they may not necessarily know what's going on outside of that group. So I like to think of Midwest BSFA as kind of like, we're trying to know what all the weird Black people are doing in Cincinnati, so that we can say, oh, hey, you know, so-and-so, you should meet so-and-so, and maybe something can come out of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Just tapping into like the weird Black people network.
It may be strong and enormous in number. Speaking of conventions, I know you're doing the event, it's June 26th, and this one is Facebook Live.
Yes.
So, and we'll have links to it in our show notes, as well as to the Midwest BSFA. And I know Aziza is going to be speaking. Whom else is speaking during the June 26th event?
So there is a local nerdcore rapper named Juice Lee, who I know him through music and through a podcast that he used to do with a couple of his friends. He just started his comic book series called Scrap, which he's really big into Brazilian jiu-jitsu and like mixed martial arts. And so he made this comic book about this Black female MMA fighter, basically. And he just released the second issue of it last month, I believe.
Oh, that's exciting.
Also, Victor Dandridge will be on the panel. He is based in Columbus, and Victor, oh gosh, he does a lot. He does a lot, like all over the place. So he's got several projects going right now, but he also attends conventions like all over the country. He's been a moderator on a panel that I was on last year for MechaCon, which is a kind of Black indie comic book convention based in Detroit.
Okay.
I've also seen him at Gem City Comic Con. Oh gosh, what's the one in Columbus?
There's Wizard World, and
World.
There's OhioCon, and then MatsuriCon, and
yes.
MatsuriCon. Yeah.
Is it Crossroads Columbus?
Or yeah, Cartoon Crossroads Columbus.
Yes, I think it's that one.
Thank you, Christina, in the shadows.
From the chat.
We need like a little cat icon to come up, like Bob, her Siamese cat, a little animation of it, just giving us our show notes. Be cute.
So yeah, I just wanted to get some Ohio-based people together, and just some people who are just starting out and some people who are like who've been in the business for a while, and just kind of ask them like, how are you feeling? What's most difficult right now about being creative? Like, how have you been getting your creative juices going, like in a pandemic? It's been not great for, I would say, creative people have had a tough time trying to pull together some kind of incentive to like be creative.
Yes.
But yeah,
burnout is real.
I just wanted to be able to continue our Queen City Black Comix Day event and do it safely, and try to chat with some people that we would normally have together. So
yeah, I like that. And I know I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be listening in because I just love getting insight from everywhere, and with new creators too. And also we have the Cincinnati Comics group ourselves, which please let everyone know in Queen City Black Comix Day that they are more than welcome to join our Cincinnati Comics group, which usually we meet virtually now on the second Tuesday of every month. We actually have a few new people, but we always would love more. And we just review everyone, like we'll bring stuff that we're working on. It works a lot like Christina's Illustrators group. We'll bring like work that we're like scripts or illustrations and say, what can I do better? Does this look weird? Should the eye and the ear be 3 centimeters apart? Does this work? Stuff like that. So, and just talk about nerdy things in general. So
very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Did not mean to pimp that, but here we are. It's just like,
that's a pretty regular, you said every Tuesday?
No, every second Tuesday of the month.
Second Tuesday of the month. Okay.
Yes.
That's still pretty regular. You know, we're with Midwest BSFA, when we were doing in-person events, we were mostly doing them like maybe once or twice a quarter. You know, it takes a lot to pull off an event, from getting your venue and, you know, getting your advertising together and just like making sure as many people know as possible. And some of those have been pretty successful, and some of them have been kind of like dun, 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 dun,
Yeah, I've had a few of those. We're just sitting there. So ours are less drink and draws. So we would meet at Cincinnati Brew House. There we go, on McMillan Street. And yeah, there'd be times where I'd just be sitting there with my beer, staring at my sketchbook, and be like,
anyone gonna show
no one here. Okay, it's just me and the beer and my tears.
Yeah, and I so in undergrad I was on the residence live staff, and I did a lot of programming for like my floor. At one point I had a residence live gig where I was programming for the whole like residence hall.
Mm-hmm.
And so pretty early on I got used to people, like not a ton of people showing up to stuff. So my motto now is kind of like, for those who did show up, did you have fun? Okay, we're good.
Yeah, that's a good motto to go with. Now, speaking about calling,
I would never do anything if I got too wrapped up in, well, there aren't 100 people here. I don't feel like this is successful.
Yeah.
Like,
do you really want 100 people there?
It's just fun stuff. It's just fun stuff. And if the people who showed up had fun, that's good enough for me.
And that's what matters. So talking about summoning people to show up, I heard you've gone ghost hunting. And also that would have been a good segue to get Christina and Jen back on the show. I'm curious about this ghost hunting, though.
I just happened upon a local ghost hunting group. And I thought, if I did like some kind of first person, I'm following them around on a hunt, I think this would be fun.
Yeah.
I did not think that through thoroughly enough because I am a scaredy cat.
Oh no. This was in 2008 when you wrote the article?
Yes.
This was the peak of paranormal TV, reality TV on like Sci-Fi and Discovery and all that. Yeah.
So I like horror. I like true crime. I like things of that nature, but I also will get just like very, very frightened. I have to be somewhere where I can turn whatever is happening, turn it off as quickly as possible.
Are you like me who likes suspense stuff, but if there's body horror, you're like, no.
No body horror. No,
absolutely not. None.
Got to pass by that with a 10-second. Let's go, keep going. Can't do that, no. But I just thought that would be an interesting piece to put together. And I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I was trying to figure out kind of like, well, is there gonna be anything? Is anything gonna happen that I can like write about? Like, how am
That's the $100 question.
Like, am I gonna have some way to wrap this story up? Like, what's gonna happen? Because I was already in the mode of like writing, because I spent maybe a week with them, I would say, maybe a little bit more. Interviewing people. When they went out to the house, I was there. They were there for probably like 5 or 6 hours. I was there the whole time. And so as I'm like taking notes and what have you, I'm already in my head trying to put together the story. Like, okay, this would be a great intro. Okay, I can put this information here. The ending. What am I going to do about this ending? And it was the last time that we went into the house, right before midnight, just as, they're about to wrap up. Like, I guess, we're not gonna get anything good out of this. Well, we'll discuss it when we meet next week. And that was when we went into the bedroom one last time, and the person who I was with asked about kids. And kids, that was the trigger. So she starts asking about whoever's there, like asking about their kids, and that meter jumped. And the other person was like, what was that? I just saw a shadow go past the window.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's always super alarming, just from a true crime perspective. Shadow going past window, and you're like, oh deal.
Yes.
So
I'm sitting there like, don't freak out. Don't freak out. Don't freak out. I'm like rocking in the dark, like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, you are professional. You're here to do a job. You can't run out of here screaming. Like, you gotta keep it under control. Keep it under wraps.
Yes.
So it was a week later, like, you know, they asked a few more questions. Nothing else happened. They had someone from like the command center around the back kind of come around the front and see, like, is anyone out there just kind of like hanging around? And maybe that was what caused the shadow. You know, nothing else happened. So we pack everything, we leave. I meet with them a week later when they're going over all of the recordings.
Mm-hmm.
And right at that moment where she starts asking about the kids, where the meter jumps, where the shadow passes, on the recording, you can hear, "It's my house." It's a very like growly, gruff voice that says, "It's my house." And I'm like, yeah, this is not what I thought I was getting myself into.
Welcome to the club.
I mean, I ended up liking the story that I put together, but I was sincerely freaked out for a while after that. Like,
yeah, because you got poked during that too.
With me. Can you just stay where you are? Don't come with me.
Yeah.
I like my house not haunted. Thanks.
It makes life a lot more, I don't want to say smooth, but relaxing when your house isn't haunted. But yeah, you don't want any hitchhikers coming home with you because they're a pain. But like reading your story and everything, and you got poked. Somebody poked you in the back during that investigation too.
I was kind of like, is someone poking me, or am I just like imagining this? Is this sweat rolling down my back? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
It was very, very warm. And that was toward the beginning of the night. And I was kind of like, am I going to figure out a way to get out of this? Am I going to stay here for the rest of the evening? Or am I just going to tell them like, hey, I think I have everything that I need. I'm going to talk to you later. Like, what I managed to like calm myself down, kind of like, you got to see this through. You've got to see what happens. If anything happens, you just got to like, you've got to be here. This is your story. This is a first person narrative. You've got to do it.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad you did. It's a good story. It's like I said, I think before the show, it was very nostalgic reading through it. I'm like, oh, I miss going on investigations. Like they're always in random countryside houses. And you're just like, why? Why is it always like the Texas killing fields out here? Like, why are you never in the city?
Why is this out in the middle of nowhere?
Of course there's the shed full of axes and other murder weapons just dangling from the rafters. Of chainsaws. I love decorating my house in them. It's just, why? Why always the countryside? Anyway, yeah, it reminded me a lot of investigations. And actually, that was a fairly active investigation just from your article that I read. That was active. Most of them is people just sitting around for 3 to 6 hours in the dark confessing to farting, because you have to, every single sound that you've made, burping, farting, shifting in your seat. There's an F in that word.
When you go back and listen to the tapes, like, at 21:40, that was just me passing gas. Sorry, everyone.
Yes. It's like cat made a toot at 12:45. Like, you got to account for that because it can sound ghostly. it, depending on what kind of recording devices you're using, it can sound really ghostly. Or like chairs, if you're moving furniture, you have to note it. If you're right, like
Yeah,
I always had a sketchbook, not sketchbook, man, wrong career. I always had a notebook and I was writing things down. So I had to always note when I was writing things down so it didn't sound like something scratching on the walls. But
they
that
did
just made,
mention the like pulling of like duct tape. So they were putting
yeah.
things that like taping things down. And then at one point there was like water running and someone was like, "What were you peeing?" Like, no, I was just getting water from the refrigerator.
But that's a legit thing because if you accidentally put your voice recorder within earshot of the bathroom, you're hearing every investigator who's using the facilities. And what, no one wants to hear that, but sometimes bathrooms, actually oftentimes bathrooms are haunted.
Oh
So,
no.
oh yes, it is a book I want to write. Is haunted bathrooms.
Why?
So,
No. Yeah,
yeah, it
I had my fill of that type of thing with that story. I was good.
yeah.
I did not want to, it did not spark any interest in me to like join the group and want to do that like every weekend or what have you. Like,
Yeah,
no,
you
this is
don't have a
my
life if you do
time
it every
right here.
weekend. Yeah.
I can get off of this ride right now.
Yeah. Well, you had a good ride. That was a good taste of what it's like. Now, I'm going to summon the other two with my little Ouija board here. Christina and Jen, will you join our talking circle?
We have about 5 minutes, so
Yeah.
this is a one thing I wanted to ask you is do you have planned maybe one of the things I love about speculative fiction and science fiction in particular is they often will publish and science fiction is probably the only genre that does this short stories. So have you thought about publishing a collection of short stories or short comics?
Oh gosh.
I know that's a lot of work. Speaking as Kat and I know, editing an anthology, but with Kickstarter now, it seems like publishing's really been disrupted. So, have you thought about doing your own thing?
Yeah, that's not something that we've talked about. I mean, I think it's an interesting concept. I just feel like our organization is so small that I don't know if we could like hit the goal of doing a crowdfunding type of campaign like that to be able to do an anthology of some sort. Yeah, I feel like although the crowdfunding campaigns, Kickstarter, what have you, have kind of leveled the playing field as far as who gets to publish. It's really been great being able to support so many different kind of indie creators and help them get their brands going. What things that I see that I've supported that have become like kind of blockbusters, and they were asking for like $5,000 on Kickstarter. They were asking for, $10,000 on Kickstarter. I think those are still very much, it's still very much about popularity. It's like, how big is your following to be able to support a crowdfunding campaign? And I just don't feel like we're big enough to do something like that. It would have to be completely like funded. I would have to know, because I couldn't deal with the anxiety of being like, and we got another $10 and we've still got like 5,500 to go. Like, I couldn't deal with the anxiety of that. I would just be like, okay, here's $5,000. We're just gonna do it ourselves.
It is
like,
stressful.
There's a lot of self cheerleading that like 31 days that you have something going. Yeah.
I don't think I could handle it. No.
I think this is a great organization, though. I mean, I have so many students. I love your message that you can make a living at this and, encouraging people to submit to, a lot of times people are afraid to submit to art directors and to, I mean, speaking from an art, because what I do is illustration, and to editors. And, I think that this is a great way for people to see how you get published and that there is a path for everyone. And I definitely will suggest this to my illustration students. I have so many students that want to do comics and do writing and that sort of thing. I'm always telling them
to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Like I went to journalism school, and from the first story that I wrote to the stories that I write now, there is a major difference. There's a almost 25-year difference from when I wrote my first story when I was a freshman in college to what I do right now. But I had to start somewhere. You have to be able to like take the critique that's out to critique people like harshly. It's just, can you take the critique? Does the critique make sense? Is it a conversation? Like when I'm working with writers, when I'm editing things, it's a conversation. It isn't me dictating like, I cut this because it's stupid and you shouldn't have said that. And it's just, hey, here are the edits that I made. Do these make sense to you? Oh, that doesn't make sense to you. How would you say that? You've got to be able to have a conversation with people. And, while I am not an artist, I do consider like writing as a part of my art. Like I'm not drawing anything, but when I'm putting words together, when I'm putting stories together, I can get very attached to them. So I can imagine how someone who is drawing something, who's like creating a story, it can get really attached to it and may not want to take that kind of critique, but it's a part of the business. It's anything that you are doing that requires writing, editing, artistry of any sort. Some critique is a part of that business. So
that's
I agree.
Really great. Yeah. On that note, I guess we got you a little bit almost an hour here. So
we chatted for a lot longer, but yeah,
we really, really, really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Well, we hope you can come on again, actually, as you do more with as you have more events and stuff, feel free to come on. We want to really promote local creators as a segment. We haven't been able to do it every show, but we hope to do it as many shows as possible as part of, since we're doing the comic anthology and stuff, we want to promote other creators as well.
Yeah, we're very creative focused here.
Inviting me.
Yes, really thank you for coming on. We should have you on to talk about steampunk and how to make it much more international and diverse.
I would love that, actually.
Yeah.
Can I talk about steampunk?
Okay.
All right. So for tonight, we have a hometown haunt from Jen, a friend of the show. So Jen, take it away.
All right. This is from Jen. Back when I was in college, I rented a big house with 5 other roommates. My best friend Laura had one of the upstairs bedrooms, which was always freezing cold, no matter what the weather was or how much we heated the house. We always joked that maybe someone died in there. One day, I picked up an old Ouija board at a thrift shop just because I thought it would be cool to have. At some point, a few of my roommates and I were sitting around bored, and someone suggested that we play with the Ouija board. We thought it would be funny, so why not? I never believed those things really work because I just felt like people direct it to what they wanted to say. But we asked a bunch of silly questions, and after a bit, Laura asked about the house. I don't remember her exact question, but not long after that, there was a knock on the front door. When we answered the door, there was this guy standing there that none of us knew. He said he used to live next door and asked us, "Do you want to know about your house?" We all kind of freaked out a bit. Here we were asking the Ouija board about the house, and here was this random guy asking if we wanted to know about it. We invited him in, and he proceeded to tell us about the family that lived there. He said that the oldest son had the upstairs bedroom at the front of the house. That was Laura's bedroom. Apparently, the son had killed himself in that room. It gave us chills, and Laura felt creeped out staying in that room for the rest of the time we lived there. And we never played with the Ouija board again.
Oh, man.
No. No.
That is
Oh.
a
You
that
wanna
is a
know
really
about your
creepy story.
house? Hell no! Get off my porch.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that is the thing that creeps me out the most is just rando dude coming up saying, "Hey, do you want to hear about your house?"
That is such
No.
a weird. That is such
And
a
it
That's
was
weird.
happened to me
neighbor.
before too.
Has that happened to you before? What was your experience?
So
we need
at
to do
our
a Ouija board episode.
Yeah, we could. So in our previous house here in Cincinnati, it is over a century old, and we knew about the backstory because I had looked it up because that's what I do. But one of the family members of not the people we had bought it from, not from the estate we had bought it from, but from the family that built the house back in 1908, they knocked on our door one day and was like, "Hey, can we come in and look at the house? My grandfather helped build it." And I just looked at her and I'm like, "No, you're not coming in. I'm sorry. But you can look around the house, like outside, but no, you're not coming inside." And
So that
it
would have
was-
been like inviting spirits in or something.
no, it was just creepy. It's a strange person trying to case my house. There was just sudden red flags everywhere.
Oh,
And
that's a
me
good
being
point.
me, I was just like, no. And so yeah, that was so her letting the neighbor in. I'm just like, okay, sure.
Tangent. This morning, I woke myself up screaming, "Who the fuck are you?"
Oh, no.
Whoa.
I had a dream that I was in my grandfather's house. And since he died, I've been having this reoccurring dream that they had this completely separate house that was somehow hidden within the house. So I had never seen it while he was alive, but we discovered it after he died. This is in the dream. This is not true. But in the dream, I go into up these dark stairs, very narrow staircase, and I turn to a room and there's a friend behind me, and I open the door and there's a naked lady sitting facing the wall with really long red hair, and her hair was, doing that spidery thing, like she was blowing in the wind or floating in the water. And when I was saying, "Who the fuck are you?" she was turning around, and that's when I woke up.
Whoa.
Scared the crap out of me. I haven't had a nightmare in a while.
Wow.
Yeah, why it's like, oh, I think in the dream somebody was going to shoot someone. I think it's because I've been watching too much true crime and
I don't know, but that's a weird story though.
Wow.
Yeah, but I actually woke myself up yelling. Whoops.
Wow. Yeah.
We need to get those tarot readers in and get somebody to
Yeah.
do a
Try to
reading.
read. Yeah. Oh man. Well, on that bombshell. Good night, everyone. Yeah.
All right. Yay.
Yeah.
Happy
No.
sleeping.
The happy sleeping. No. You can follow us on all of our social media as my voice cracks like I'm a teen. You can find us at Sin Cabinet Curio on Twitter, at Cincy Cabinet of Curiosities on Instagram, and of course, you can send us your hometown haunt, weird history, spooky stories, creepy cryptids to hometownhauntedmail@gmail.com. And we do check those. And you're looking at the staff right here. It's just the three of us. So with that said, stay curious, everyone. And